Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. I'm going to look today at something that is recorded in all four of the Gospels. And indeed, it does appear to have happened twice because John records it right at the beginning of the ministry of Jesus, as early as John chapter 2, and the other three Gospels record it as happening, a similar thing happening immediately after Jesus came into Jerusalem at the beginning of the last week of his life. There's nothing to make us doubt that it did happen twice. It wouldn't be at all surprising if it happened twice. I don't think John got it in the wrong order, but it doesn't really matter. What was important was what Jesus did. Now, I've got some thoughts. They may send you off on wild goose chases, I don't know. But what happened was Jesus went into the temple, having come in as the king into the capital, and he went into the temple, where he was daily teaching. When he was in Jerusalem, he was regularly in the temple. He honoured the temple in every way. Now, the temple, if you have a chance to look at the detail of the temple was shaped. Although it was a permanent structure, very similarly to the tabernacle in the wilderness. It had a Holy of Holies where the ark was. It had an outer holy place where the showbread was, and where the candles, the lampstand was, and the altar of incense was. And then outside of that, there was the inner court of the Jews, where cleansing for the priests happened. And then there was the outer court, which was for the Gentiles. And it was in the outer court where they were buying and selling, and Jesus dealt with them. And there's several things to be said about this. The first is that they sold the animals to people for sacrifice, and you had to buy the animals with temple money. So you had to change your ordinary money into temple money and then buy the animals. And in the exchange rate, they pocketed, they took their cut, as it were, those who sold. And the buying and selling was done in the only part of the temple where non-Jews were allowed to come to pray and worship. And the quote that Jesus speaks here when he says, "It is written," it is in Luke 19:46, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." That quote comes from Isaiah 56. And if you look at Isaiah 56, it is all about people from all over the world, all non-Jews, coming to realize who the true God is and coming to Jerusalem to worship. And Jesus quotes from that text this, "You've made my house, you've made it a den of robbers." And he was speaking out against what was happening. Imagine you are a Gentile, you're not a Jew, you're only allowed into one part of the temple to worship God. You've realized who God is, you've come to him, and you come to this place, and it's full of noise. It's full of bargaining and bartering and the noise of animals, and it's a marketplace. It's not a place for prayer and meditation and quiet like the rest of the temple is. It's been turned into a den of robbers. And the very people who Jesus knew his gospel would reach were being denied what the Jews were given, even though in their own scriptures it was foretold that the Gentiles would come to the coming of the Messiah. And Jesus was pointing out to them that they had changed the purpose of this part of the temple and denied to people who genuinely were seeking their God. They were denying these people access to him in the way that they had it. And it showed they didn't really understand what God was all about, that he intended his Jewish people, to be those who would spread the news around the world about his love for everyone, not just the Jews, but for everyone. And it's all there in the Old Testament, isn't it? We know it's there. And Jesus knew that the time for that temple to be the centre of worship of God was coming to an end. And therefore, he went into the temple to cleanse it. Now, you may not follow that, but do read Isaiah 56 and see how much of that chapter is about the Gentiles coming. And Jesus knew that the temple, the other temple, his body, was going to be destroyed. He knew that this last week he would be teaching an awful lot to his disciples and to anyone else who was listening about the new covenant that was about to be inaugurated. And when the new covenant came, the old temple would be obsolete. There would no longer be need for sacrifices. There would no longer be need for all this trading and everything. It was finished. When Jesus died on the cross, the veil was torn from top to bottom. The need to keep people away from the immediate presence of God was gone, because access to God was going to be through Jesus. And the whole old covenant was finished with. And right at the beginning of this final week is the end of the old covenant. And those who were ready for it embraced the new covenant, which Jesus inaugurated at the Last Supper when he said, "This is my blood of the new covenant, which is given for you and for many." So the temple was finished with, and the new temple, which was the body of Jesus, but also was to be the body of every believer, was to be the new temple, God dwelling amongst his people, in his people. And that Paul brings this teaching further forward and says, "Do you not know that your bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit that has been given to you?" We are the temple of God, individually and corporately when we meet together as the church. It's a transition. This is a period of transition that has been inaugurated by the ride into Jerusalem. And Jesus knows when he looks down on Jerusalem that its time is finished for being the centre of the worship of God the Father. Everything was about to change. God bless you. Have a great day. Keep your temple swept and clean. It's a good thought, eh? See you tomorrow. Bye.